What's going on, everyone? Matt here for another awesome episode. This is our first episode that I'm going to be interviewing another guest. So I'm super excited. So this is the PT Profit Leverage and Lifestyle Show. I'm your host, Matt Dart. I'm here with Aaron today. He's actually one of my clients that I mentor in the industry. So I'll get him to share a little bit about his story and what he's up to, but we're going to dive into some of his skills, some of the things that he's passionate about that you guys can relate back to your business and ultimately help you serve your clients and get your clients awesome results. So Aaron, how are you today, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Just finished training not too long ago, so nice upper body session. So yeah, it's always fun.
Nice, mate. And if you guys aren't, I'll get Aaron to um tell us where to follow him because his workouts are pretty advanced from the stuff that I do anyway. So I always learn a few things from Aaron, watching what he does and his clients as well. So remind me at the end to get your socials off you at the end. But
Yeah.
yeah, give us a bit of insight. Obviously where you train, which club are you at, and give us a bit of a backstory in terms of why you got into the industry.
Yeah, so run my business out of Anytime Fitness in Stafford, located in Brisbane. And I've been part of a few gyms, but I've mainly stuck with Anytime Fitness for since I started training really. So a long time. So I pretty much just do my training there, normally in between clients, or at the end or something. It's just quite convenient. But yeah, I like it.
Nice, mate. I know you obviously you're always studying to improve yourself in terms of knowledge of exercises. I know you're researching about supplement brands and stuff like that at the moment as well. But what type of training do you do?
Yeah, so I guess going back to the history, I started out just trying to get big and jacked, um,
Nice.
which I don't know what inspires most people, but for me it was like cartoons and stuff and wrestling, just that old the WWE and stuff as a kid and
Yeah.
yeah, and Dragon Ball Z and stuff. Just used to see them, and I was like, I want to look like that. Um, so I started training to get to get bigger. Um, so I guess my style was more like hypertrophy, like muscle building, bodybuilding style. Um, and then a few people that I found in the industry kind of really pushed that getting stronger was the best way to grow. So some of their programs was kind of centered around progressive overload and adding weight and stuff. And yeah, so that kind of got me. I was kind of always trying to push the weight up anyway, but I guess that just made it stuck.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so um, essentially I did that, and I was just trying to always get stronger. And then I noticed I was quite strong compared to other people and stuff. And eventually that eventuated into powerlifting. So I was like, well, how do I compare my strength with other people? Rather than just eyeing people off in the gym or something. So yeah, so eventually that became powerlifting, and I probably done 5 competitions now. But I always loved just getting bigger. So my training at the moment's um, or for the last few years has kind of been what you'd call power building. So combining strength or even specific strength with squat, bench, and deadlift, as well as stuff that's going to promote more growth. Because if you just do kind of strictly squat, bench, and deadlift, and specifically powerlifting training, it's you're going to run into opportunity cost of where you could build more muscle. So it's kind of where you find this healthy mix of progressing in the big three, but also driving a lot of hypertrophy as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll dive into that a little bit because I like my type of training that I do is I'll do like the typical the bench, squats, deadlifts, and stuff. But I probably am in that boat where I'm missing opportunities for the other muscle groups to kind of build as well. So I'm curious because a lot of PTs that listen to this are, probably finishing their course, been in the industry for, a little while, but, certainly probably not, 10, 15 years or anything like that. So how would you incorporate that into, like, obviously you work with some beginners, some intermediate people, and some advanced people as well. So how do you have that conversation with someone that's quite new to the gym?
Yeah, so something you might graduate to. Might start off just with like the movement patterns. You might even start people off with like machines, but like a horizontal press. So like a cable chest press or something before you start them on a bench press even. And then when they get like, and then you might graduate to like a dumbbell press or a barbell press or something like that. But like a good example is you can use the hack squat or the V squat to kind of teach the squat pattern, because you can't really stuff that up. It's just, it goes up and down. They don't have to think a whole lot. But people might think, oh, the machine's doing the work for you. But no, people can learn a lot from that. And they can kind of build the prerequisites to then get under a bar, and quite quickly. So you might only need to do a few weeks at like a machine based and just follow those movement patterns, whether it's like a hinge, squat, press. And then you can kind of get them to a bar or something, or get them to dumbbells, depending on what you think's best and what they want to do. Like, I don't force people into like squat, bench, and deadlift, even though a lot of my training revolves around that. I might just have them do a variation of those. So I think, like, for instance, I think a Romanian deadlift is more specific to building a physique than a deadlift, like a conventional deadlift. So I might have a lot of people not do any conventional deadlifts and just do Romanian deadlifts instead, particularly those that are just chasing like aesthetic, like a look. But if a client, specifically is like, I want to get my bench press up, or I love bench pressing, or I love deadlifting, then I certainly won't take that away.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have too many people saying they love deadlifting.
Yeah, well, you'd be surprised, but yeah, I've definitely gotten a few. But,
yeah. For those who don't know, Aaron has the lowest average clientele I've ever seen. He's seen
average age.
average age.
Yeah.
Whereas my clientele stems anywhere from 17 to I just actually I got someone sign up the other day that's 83 years old.
Nice.
And here is Aaron training mid-20s for pretty much everyone. So
Yeah, low 20s even.
It's interesting how different demographics, because we're only, like, your gym and my gym's only probably 20 minutes apart, but completely different demographic. Interesting. But I also wanted to dive in because, like, obviously you do a lot of strength training, but I would imagine, and I wanted to bring up fat loss in terms of, doing strength training to achieve fat loss. I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about that, because, most of the general population want to, lose fat or lose weight, which essentially is losing fat.
Yeah.
How would you train someone to lose fat, but also, have the benefits of gaining muscle as well?
Yeah, great question. So that's where you can be very specific to your exercise selection. So a good example might be like, you got like a concentration curl, like like elbow tucked to your knee, one arm at a time. Just what's another example? Oh yeah, that's a pretty good example. You got that versus like, I don't know if you've seen some like Arnold Schwarzenegger's like old training videos and stuff, but like he used to love doing heavy barbell cheat curls, where he would just load up a heavy bar, slap a bunch of weight on it, and just do these, kind of where you add a bit more of a swing and get a bit of hips going and what you'd call like body English. bring like some body English into the mix and just like heave ho this gigantic weight. I think he would like often start strict and then kind of as he fatigues, add a bit more like body English to it. So comparing, say, like a set like that to like a concentration curl or something is like night and day difference. Like one, you've got like, you can pretty much do the concentration curl in like a parasympathetic state. So like you're not really deviating from like your rest and digest. But you could draw the line at about 100 beats a minute between like where you're going between parasympathetic and sympathetic in terms of like rest and digest versus like fight or flight. So you're not really deviating much past parasympathetic just by doing some concentration curls and some other like really isolated movements. But if you're doing heavy cheat curls, you're getting quite sympathetic. So yeah, I might program something like that. I don't cheat as much as Arnold does. I'll kind of cue my clients to like go a little bit like a kettlebell swing where they might hinge a bit at the hips, but they just stand tall. They don't like bend back.
Yeah.
And what I might, and then I'll have them at the start actually go strict. Keep it nice strict form, and then as they fatigue, we can kind of change the mechanics of it to bring some body English into it, and then start like swinging it a bit, as long as they don't lean back too much. Yeah. And then you'll get this like, a night and day difference. You got like this high ventilatory state, blood pressure's up, heart rate's up, oxygen's down. Very different environment you're creating. And you can add specific rest times to that, like maybe you're doing 60 seconds, 90 seconds. You can even like measure heart rate and you don't let it get too low before you commence your next set. With like squats, you might pick a movement pattern where like you have no rest at lockout. So you're kind of doing like, you could also call them piston squats. So like you don't really stop at the top at all. Kind of like, up, as soon as you're up, so you can do those. You might describe like 4 sets of 8 or 4 sets of 10 with like 1 minute rest. And you'll notice like some, yes, exactly.
Yeah, right.
So it's kind of like a mixture of like exercise selection. So stuff that's going to kind of promote more sympathetic activity, mixed with like you might chuck a specific like constraint to it, like no rest at lockout or something, or
so
like that, and do a specific rest time, or make a superset, or you might do some giant sets, or even do a circuit type stuff.
Yeah, just for the people that don't know what that is, what's a giant set?
Giant sets where like you have like 3 different exercises. Well, they could even be 3 exercises that are different, but might even target like the same muscle group in just different, like say, planes.
Yeah. So instead of a superset being just 2 exercises, a giant set might be 3 or 4.
Yeah. Yeah. And one that's pretty common that I might do like starter session is like, you can just use body weight. Body weight's like actually a bit underrated. Like, you might set up a circuit with like some abs, like maybe some like ab wheel rollouts, into some push-ups, into some inverted like ring rows or something, and just like do those 3, rest 40 seconds, do another round, and you're just using your body weight, but you'll generate like a lot of generate like higher heart rates, get people out of breath, kind of getting them into the right energy system then to start the session.
Yeah.
It's kind of like some, say, Metcon, like metabolic conditioning to start. Then you can push your strength stuff for the rest of the session, but in like a Metcon kind of way, like I was talking about the squats and the cheat curls and stuff.
So would you do that? Would you ever do strength first and then finish on that type of stuff, or does it matter?
Doesn't matter so much. I think what you want though, is like people are going to be gassed from the training that they're just going to like really sandbag their like metcon at the end. That's going to be like, nah, you barely get a push up out of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas like a lot of that stuff what you can call like movement prep. Like a lot of stuff, the exercises you can make specific to the work that's to come, and it can then potentiate the session. So like you might be doing like a goblet squat or something, which is gonna like just like goblet squats, you know what I mean? But enough to kind of get the heart rate up. And that's going to potentiate the main squat pattern that's to come.
Yeah.
Just getting you in the right pattern, kettlebell swings will be good for like your rate of force development. So that's going to help with like, say, if you've got RDLs and stuff like that in the session, it's going to help with that hinge pattern and just creating force through the hips and hamstrings. So I like it at the start just to like get you in the right energy system, get you kind of moving in patterns that you're going to be using thereafter. And you'll find that your sessions your strength isn't really inhibited by that at all.
Yeah. And like let's just say for the average person that wants to achieve fat loss, are those type of sessions you do on a regular basis, or are they just a couple of times a week that you would do that, and then you would do the other ones just as strength or just as cardio?
Yeah, I try and do that like most sessions. Yeah, I'll kind of start with some like metcon stuff, and yeah, I'll drive a fair bit of that to start, and then and then I'll just go into some like 3 sets of 10 or something, 4 sets of 8 on like a heavier lift. You can also do things like EMOM, like every minute on the minute
Oh yeah.
stuff, and you can kind of do those, like you can kind of go quite heavy with those and like drive the volume up. So you might go like 6 sets of 3 1 minute rest kind of thing. So like the weight's fairly heavy, even though the reps are so low, you can driving a lot of fat loss just through that like high ventilatory state, because you're getting under the bar, you're pumping out 3 heavy reps, you're only resting a minute, going back. You have to like stay like fairly in like a fairly like excitated state, because like, oh, this weight's fairly heavy, like.
Yeah.
So you kind of got to stay sympathetic and mentally prepared to just do that. So that's another way you can kind of do a lower rep version and push even heavier weight, but in a fat loss kind of environment.
Yeah. What about AMRAPs?
Yeah, AMRAPs are cool.
Same, but different to a degree.
Same, but different. Yeah. It depends. Like, because you're pushing so close to failure, like it's often worth doing that on like safer movements, so like machines, or like isolation, like tricep extension. It's quite safe.
Yeah.
Whereas AMRAPs on a bench or on a squat tend to be a bit, on barbell bench and squat tend to be a bit iffy. Yeah, as long as someone knows not to go quite to failure. But they can be a bit scary, or say a squat doing an AMRAP.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Could be pretty full on if you're doing pretty heavy squats on an AMRAP.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, you kind of want to spotter or want to set up some safety pins.
Yeah, for sure. What about so what about people that just for the kind of the beginners out there? What if someone just has the impression that they just need to do cardio to achieve fat loss? How do you get them like interested in lifting weights? Or like typical like male or female, someone that's brand new to a gym, they're a bit anxious about lifting weights.
The
How do you get them to like be somewhat interested in doing that?
kind of like the sweat is fat crying people. Yeah, well, So one would be that like if you're doing cardio, this is kind of how I've explained it to people. Like if you're just doing cardio, your body's going to be fairly non-biased when it comes to where it's going to be getting that like energy from in terms of like tissue. Is it going to be like adipose tissue, like fat, or is it going to be like muscle tissue? If you're just doing cardio, there's no real signal. There's no real guidance. Think of it like like a lighthouse like guiding the ship. There's no guide, so your body will kind of be like non-specific, and if that's your way to lose weight and lose fat, you're going to get a decent amount of muscle come with that. Because when most people say they want to lose weight, they just mean they want to lose fat.
Yep.
So by doing resistance training concurrently or instead of, whichever one, you got that signal. You got many signals actually that the body picks up on to hold on to that, because muscle is an adaptation, a survival adaptation actually. Not many people think of it that way, but essentially you've stressed the body and it's built itself back in order to survive better moving forward. So it will have more signals just to hold on to that muscle and be more likely, kind of create the opportunity, let's say, to pull that energy from fat stores. So you're kind of shifting the bias of where where you're going to make up that deficit of energy from. Is like the best way I can kind of say it.
So in summary, then there's obviously a place for cardio, but not necessarily required.
Yeah. Cardio can even like help you build muscle. Just by being fitter.
Yeah, true.
Oh, did you say how?
Yeah.
Essentially like your ability to like recover, your ability to handle more volume, your ability to kind of like your mitochondrial efficiency. So how well your mitochondria can like work with oxygen to produce energy, to then build muscle with. So it's kind of like a lot of indirect ways to just from like being like hemodynamics, like the way you can just move blood and blood flow. It's heaps of different ways in which just being healthier and having a good kind of cardiovascular capacity can set you up or set a good stage for you to build muscle and get stronger. So I wouldn't sleep on some cardiovascular fitness, even if you just train that way, kind of like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And another thing to touch on would be that when you build muscle, muscle has like an energetic demand that fat does not have. I think muscle is at least 4 times or so, if not more, energetic demand than fat. Fat's like next to 0. But yeah, so the more muscle you have, the more energy calories you require. And when you move, there's just more contraction, there's more muscle, there's more fibers to contract for every movement you do. So you're kind of setting yourself up for just a higher metabolism and energy expenditure by growing the muscle.
Yeah. So in that case, just to touch on nutrition wise, so generally to achieve fat loss, do you generally need to eat more food if you're doing strength training?
No, not necessarily. You just kind of like eating more food will always like, doesn't hurt for strength training. But there's always like a point of diminishing returns where like just like that was like excess, You might not know it's excess, but your body will, and they'll just get fatter as a result. So it's like that point where like that that extra food is not making you any stronger than if you were eating less, kind of thing. And if you compete in powerlifting, your weight is put into the algorithm. So one of the metrics used is called DOTS, and it's essentially how much you're lifting and your body weight. So, if you drive your body weight up really high, that could negatively impact your score, your DOTS.
What's the relevance for that score? What does that tell you?
Oh, that's how you determine the winners in powerlifting. So, like, of the weight class. And if there's no weight classes, you might just use DOTS for everyone. So whoever has the highest DOTS wins. So, like, so that's where it might be negative if you're looking at putting a number on strength, because if you haven't gotten strong enough proportionally to that extra weight you've put on from all that extra food, then your score might actually go down, even if you got stronger, just because your weight's gone so much higher.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
So yeah, you'd kind of like a good way to look at it is, how is your body responding to X amount of food? How is your strength responding to X amount of food? And you'd probably run a few metrics for that. So you'd look at your scale weight, you'd look at the mirror, you might do some measurements with tape, stuff like that. You can, jump on what are they called? 360s body scanners, and measure your body fat percentage, because we know that scale weight by itself isn't the be all end all.
Yeah. Just I just want to touch on that, because a lot of obviously I talk to a lot of PTs, but a lot of them don't track any of these metrics. They don't do measurements. Like they might do the scale weight, but as you said, it's if you're just comparing the scale weight, there's a lot of variables that affect that. So what stuff do you track for your clients in terms of like measurements? Do you do any fitness testing? Do you obviously, how often would you how often would you review progress before you make any changes?
Yeah, so when it comes to body composition and, like, say, fat loss or somebody trying to gain weight, I think the weekly is pretty good. You could definitely do it like every fortnight. But that's just there's a lot of food in between, even a week.
Yeah.
And the body can make some decent changes in a week too. So I like to look about every week. And yeah, I'm looking for a couple of things. So definitely the mirror. So photos. So I took photos for any visual changes, but also comparing the visual changes to what the scale's saying. So has the scale gone up, but do they look leaner? So that's definitely happened many times.
Yeah.
And then, so you can make one redundant, or you can use that to infer some muscle gain. It could be like, has the scale stayed the same, but have they dropped some centimeters on their waist?
Yeah.
And then you can be like, oh, that's a recomp going on. That's fat loss occurring with muscle gain occurring, and make some good conclusions there. So definitely good to run a couple of measurements concurrently. Because if you're just going off scale weight, it's quite flawed. And if you're just going off pictures, can also be a bit flawed. So I like to have a few going.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, because as you said, like, it's happened to me plenty of times before where you look a lot leaner, but you've gone up in weight as well. So
particularly in beginners, people new to training, particularly say people that are returning to training as well, have a lot of muscle memory there. They're kind of prime candidates where they can kind of lose a lot of fat, build a lot of muscle, and have all sorts of recomp going on.
Yeah. I'm curious if you can, if you're suggesting, or you can, review metrics like every week. Um, how would you suggest doing that? I know, obviously, I know your process already, but can you share how you would do that? Whether it's check-in form or whether they have to send photos or whatever it is. Can you give us?
Yeah. So you might just like have a table. Say you could use an app, or you could just use like Excel or Google Sheets. I use Google Sheets because I like having just like a live document. You could just have like the 7 days, and then you can get them to record their weight throughout those days. It doesn't have to be 7. I like a kind of a minimum of 3. Weight can fluctuate a lot based on stress and hydration and all sorts of stuff. So if you're just weighing yourself once a week, also quite flawed. And all my kind of nutritional clients see how flawed it can be once they start doing that and have a look. But yeah, you might have like 7 days laid out, and then you might get them to weigh themselves 3 to 7 times a week, and then you just have that averaged out, and then you can kind of look at like rather than maybe looking week to week, you look at the average of the week versus the average of the next week.
Yeah.
And then you might have another kind of thing next to it, which is just once a week, say on the check-in day, like a waist measurement. And then get them to send some photos, and maybe even ask for their subjective. Do you feel leaner? Have you been noticing anything? How are your clothes fitting? So it could be like a subjective element to that, where they might just put that in like a comment section. And then you can always set up like a graph that just is attached to those inputs on, say, the sheet. So you can just have a graph that will just populate like the average weight, or even the weight every time it's done, and the waist measurement. You can kind of like over time, have that graph displayed for a better visual.
Yeah. Sounds like you're a bit of a wizard on Google Sheets, mate.
Yeah. Spend a lot of time on Google Sheets.
Yeah,
Actually, recently a friend showed me a video where there was like an Excel championship went down. It's kind of like the E-games, but it was like Excel, and there was like all these like world-class participants, and I think there was a bit of an upset. I think this guy was a bit of an underdog, and he took it out or something. But yeah, that cracked me up.
how would you even do that? They'd have to solve certain formula, or put certain.
Yeah, I dare say there'd be like questions about like, here's a scenario, and they've got to like, we have X client is seeking this figure, and here are the components or something.
Yeah.
And they've just got to come up with someone that gets the correct information, but also I dare say there's a time component to it. So that's my guess. I haven't watched it unfold or read up too much on it, but yeah.
Wild. Just going back to the strength training for fat loss. Do you feel with like retention, like one of my other episodes was talking about retention, and I talked about forecasting results like consistently. So like one of the things that I recommend is generally every 4 weeks to do a reassessment of where they're at and then reforecast goals. Do you feel like, because I think a lot of like newer PTs will kind of, they won't have the confidence to have control to say, hey, cool, we're going to do this. Whereas they might kind of be like, oh, well, let's just try this and try this. What do you think the benefits are of, perhaps combining strength plus cardio, or even just strength in terms of overall retention? Because obviously you can therefore have like strength goals, which is obviously going to take a longer time than weight loss or fat loss, for example. Do you think it makes a big difference in terms of retention if you're focusing on those areas?
Yeah, I think if you can just provide value, but more importantly, if the client can perceive value, probably the key, they're more likely to have better attention from that. So it's all, if you're just being like, all right, 4 sets of 12 and then jump on the Stairmaster, and that's as far as you go, you're likely to create a staleness and some boredom, and might lose the client's perception of or perceived like value. So but if you but you could jazz that right up. You could be like, this week's 4 sets of 12, and that's going to set you up for this or something, or that's a great amount of reps for this exercise, for this movement, because of what it's supersetted with, or because of the rest time associated or something. You can just explain a little bit about your personal intent behind what you're getting them to do. Whether that's the exercise selection, the sequence that it's in, why you want them on the Stairmaster for X amount of minutes, or X amount of heart rate, or whatever. So I think explaining things, explaining the why, will create better adherence, for one, because if they know why they're doing something, they're more likely to do it, particularly if in their solo sessions. And they'll just have more confidence in you, and they'll feel a bit more empowered as to why they're doing stuff. More trust, more perceived value in what you're offering.
Yeah.
And it's definitely good to check in every so often and do like a reforecast and stuff. Like, I have a form, and it's kind of like, how happy are you with the kind of structure of the training and the program and stuff, and then like, how well do you find this training reflects your goals? And so you could do that, and they might put it as a 2 out of 5 or something, because you just haven't explained that what you have them doing is great for fat loss. So they might have this idea that it's crappy based on a magazine they read or something. So because you haven't explained anything, but at least that forms a good chance to, then you can have that conversation. But if you're like, telling them your intent and stuff like during the sessions, you'll find that you'll kind of always get 5s. And all they'll really offer is, all you can really do in terms of changing the direction is when there's kind of when you tick off boxes, tick off goals, and have new goals.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I have that conversation a lot with a lot of people in terms of they need to understand why they're doing something, because otherwise there's no buy-in. As you said, there's no adherence to what they're doing. So of course they're gonna give up and quit, or if it gets a bit too boring and they're not seeing the perceived value, of course they're gonna get up and leave. So my question to that is, how often would you, I know you would review things every now and then, like possibly per week or even per month, but in terms of the stuff that they do on their own, some PTs have differing opinions on this. Some trainers like to have like the same exercises for like a whole, I don't know, 12-week period, so they can track that performance of those exercises. Whereas some trainers, they might change the exercises, every week possibly, or even every couple of weeks, so there's more variety. Do you think that makes much of a difference? And if so, why?
Yeah, great question. So in terms of like, I guess you can get into kind of like the progressive overload there. So like, a lot of people get very like one mind, like dogmatic even about progressive overload. Like, the only way is to add weight to the bar. There's so many ways to progressively overload. We can shorten rest. You can add reps, you can add sets, you can add a tempo, you can add pauses, use lots of different things. So I think like having the same exercise just allows it to be easier to track progressive overload because you're not really changing anything. I think there's no harm in either way. I think kind of the client should have some input on that, as well as yourself. Like, if someone's giving somebody cranky elbows, let's find a substitute. If someone just hates an exercise, like, find a substitute. You don't have to do it for 12 weeks just so you can say that you progressively overload that exercise.
Yeah.
But like, if there's no problems with it, you could definitely run that just for ages, particularly if it's a great exercise for that muscle group. You could kind of run that really year round. There's no harm to run an exercise year round even. But yeah, you might change it just to give some clients some variety. Get into a bit of a different movement plane. There's like an adaptation you can get called like pennation angle, where it kind of like your tendons will kind of like adapt. They'll kind of like stiffen and even like change position and stuff a little bit to make a certain movement pattern more efficient. So that's why I like which kind of puts the spanner in the works of progressive overload. It's like, that doesn't mean you've built more muscle. You might have just got more neurologically adept at that pattern. You might have got some pennation angle adaptations which allow you to squat easier. You know what I mean? And it's nothing to do with building muscle. So another reason you might change an exercise is just to be in like kind of a different movement pattern for the same muscle group, but just so you're not getting those adaptations. You kind of like, people think about shocking the muscle. It's not really shocking the muscle. It's just kind of providing a slight different stimulus if you've run into a lot of adaptations.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, so I don't mind doing it for the sake of that. And then you can just explain that intent to the client.
Yeah. Again, if people know why they're doing certain things and kind of where they're at, then there's not a whole lot of reasons why they would need to leave the service.
Yeah. Changing a tricep push down to a overhead rope extension, for example, kind of, working the muscle in different lengths and same muscle, it's all the same it's all tricep, but it's different planes of motions and stuff, different positions.
Yeah, love it. Sounds good, mate. So if anyone wants to learn off you, because I know a few PTs actually use your service to learn more as well. So if you want to hit Aaron up, where can they find you on the socials, my friend?
Yeah, so I'm under Gorgonite Performance. So if anyone that's seen the movie Small Soldiers, you know where the name's inspired from. But yeah, Gorgonite Performance on pretty much all the socials. Find me. Always chucking up some stuff in the stories. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Great conversation as always. The last question, I'm kind of finishing on this one.
Yeah.
Is because you're obviously very knowledgeable about this stuff. So do you have a recommendation? Like, obviously we can learn off yourself as well, but is there someone else on social media, whether it's a PT or whoever, that that people can follow to find out more about, the performance side of things, the strength training, even powerlifting? Got anyone in mind?
Anyone in mind? Oh, no one comes to mind too much. I mean, Eric Helms, he puts out some good stuff and has a good podcast. But yeah, I just get my information off like so many different people, and there's no like I kind of like work out what makes sense from everyone and kind of put it all together. So I can't really say any one person because a lot of their stuff I disagree with. But some of their stuff I'm like, that's a great idea, and I'll cherry pick that stuff. So it's a bit hard to give out one person. I like following a lot of people that just put up crazy gnarly strength feats, but they don't really provide much education on it. They're just savages. So if you're looking for a savage to follow,
Oh yeah, I gotta just throw it out there. Throw one out there. Otherwise, everyone's just gonna follow you because you're the top dog, mate.
I'm a bit of a savage, yeah. What's his name? The Australian fella. I can't even think of it. It's Aussie fella. His name's Tom. He's like 150 kilos, 6'8". Trains in like his landscaping, long pants, boots. Yeah, he's great. He's great to watch.
Good.
Otherwise, yeah. Feel free to slide into the DMs. Happy to answer any questions and talk shop.
Awesome. Sounds good, mate. Appreciate your time.
No worries. Thanks, mate.